I get asked quite a lot of questions, and they all seem to be orientated around one type of subject, and some of the questions seem very genuine, and then you get other questions that you think, what are they trying to, what are they looking at, what are they trying to dig out? So I've got a video. I'm going to do a video to answer many questions that keep arising. I'm guessing a lot of these window cleaners are new and they want to learn the best information, the best techniques, the best methods, the best squeegees. I'm not going to talk anything about water-fed pole, and because I'm really busy with my work and other things going on, I don't really have time to make a lot of window cleaning tutorials these days. So I thought if I make a very basic, very simple analogy type video, it will help answer many of the questions that keep arising day in, day out, and they all typically are catering for the one type of answer, but they're all different questions that are being asked. But hopefully this video will tie over all the information that I'm going to speak about, will hopefully answer all the questions that need to be answered. So before I talk about squeegees and how to use them, I will talk about these two tools here. What we've got is a razor blade, and it's a pretty old razor blade. If I was to use this razor blade and have a shave, it will cause me a lot of burn, maybe some cuts and some bleeds. It's just not going to be a pleasurable experience. I'm going to be working longer, harder, slower, and the results won't be as good as they should be. Now, if this was a brand new razor, quite often I find with my brand new razors, I still cut myself, but the shaving experience is a lot smoother, obviously a lot sharper. And a good analogy to begin with is when you put your squeegee rubber in its brand new rubber, quite often you get this judder effect. It doesn't glide that great, it bites on turns and stuff like that, but after a while of using it, it wears in very well and it works very well. And it's the same with the razor blade. When I've used it once and I come to use it a second time, it just works a lot better. I don't get the cuts, it's still smooth, it's still sharp, it just works a lot better. And another good example with razors and shaving is if I was to use just soap and water, the tool won't work as well as if I was using proper shaving foam. So a great example of how I work is when I use my squeegees, I'm not using the soap and water mix, I'm using the shaving foam mix. So that will hopefully drum into the people who still don't really understand quite what I do differently to everybody else when it comes to using the squeegee. I use the shaving foam mix instead of the soap and water mix. Now we've got another tool here, just a knife, and if you're used to use it properly, I will cut my food and it will work very well. But if I was to turn it upside down and I started using it, it will still work, it will still cut, but it will, because it's a lot blunter, I'm going to work longer, harder, slower and get less results. So hopefully those several analogies will now tie into the things that I do with window cleaning with my squeegee work differently to how the average window cleaner you see on YouTube or around whoever you're working with or people in your local area working, how I do things differently and how it always benefits me working the way that I do compared to any other way of working. To make a video without sounding patronising and disrespectful is very, very difficult, because if I'm comparing my way of working to anybody else's average way of working, there's a huge contrast and differences and end results. To make a window cleaning video is easy for me, but to not come across as being arrogant and self-promoting or whatever, it's difficult. But I've got nothing to self-promote. Me making this video is not going to benefit me at all. It's only going to benefit the people who want to know why I do a certain thing, or want to know why I work a lot quicker and a lot smoother than the other window cleaners, why I have a lot less mess compared to everybody else. And it's a very, very simple thing to explain. But without sounding condescending, that's maybe not so simple. Right, so what I have is a saturated washer, and I put my soap directly to the washer or directly to the glass. What that gives me is the shaving foam effect for my window cleaning. What is the benefit of having the shaving foam effect for window cleaning? Right, first of all, I've got great glide. Secondly, I've got no drips, so that means I'm not going to be struggling with my technique. It's not a loose, sloppy solution, so my technique will be much more refined, much more compact, and a lot less loose. A loose solution, a loose technique. It goes hand in hand. A great static, thick solution like this, you become a much more agile, more versatile, more flexible, more talented window cleaner. So what I've done here is just a very basic, straightforward, coming down the window, which you can see all over YouTube. But the difference is, I've got zero detailing, whereas if I was using any other tool or using any other method, I'm going to have more mess, I'm going to be working longer, harder, slower, and the results will be less. So I'm going to be getting less results. But I did nothing different in terms of coming down the window doing a fanning technique. This is just basic window cleaning. I'm not doing anything fancy, nothing technical, and I'm hardly going to be doing any window cleaning really in this explanation. So if I was to add my soap, and I don't use a professional soap, I just use a normal, great sort of concentrated dish soap. I don't use the cheap versions, I use a good brand. If it's not a good brand, it's going to be a high quality, like a Lidl or an Aldi. It's not a great brand, but they have the platinum versions, the premium versions. This dish soap, and I don't add it to the bucket of water. I add it directly to the washer, but it's a saturated washer. So my solution, although there's no runs, is just as wet as if it would be if I was to take it out of the bucket of water with the soap mixed in and put it on the glass. The only thing is, I don't have the runs and I don't have the drips. So I have the better control, and I can use a better squeegee. And for people who don't understand why this squeegee is better than other squeegees, it performs better. I get to work less hard and I get high quality results using this squeegee compared to any other squeegee. And bear in mind, any other squeegee on the market. So, just to answer the question of, don't I have a problem with the soap drying out? No, the reason why I don't have the problem is two easy answers to answer that question. My washer is saturated, okay, so it's really, really wet. And if it was a hot day, I'm going to keep my washer wetter still than it would be if it was like a wet day like it is now. Secondly, I use two hands when I'm window cleaning. I'm not a one-handed window cleaner, so if I'm a one-handed window cleaner, I'm already working half the speed as if I would be working with two hands. So the people who say, why does my when they do this method, their soap dries out too quick, guarantee they're one-handed window cleaners or their washer is not wet. What about the people who use the squirt bottle? Why don't I use that method when there's the soap and water mixed in? Well, it's just not thick enough. There's not enough solution on that glass to stay wet enough, and it's not the concentration is not thick enough. This is the best window cleaning solution to work on, and it's also very, very easy to use. All you got to do is carry a soap with you and water with you, and if you can't carry your bucket with you for some reason, most of the jobs that I do is always got to tap very close by, and quite often I like to rinse my washer out under a tap anyway, because I can get rid of more debris that's built up on the washer than if I was to duck it in the bucket, because all that debris is going to go in the bottom of the bucket. So all I need to focus on is two things: my skill and how I'm going to attack that window, and using the choice tool that I will always use. Now, the questions where people say, well, other window cleaners use lots of different brands of tools, why don't you do that? Well, years ago I did use lots of brands of tools, but I didn't work the same way as everybody else on YouTube works. I always worked differently. I always disagreed or did the opposite to whatever they were proclaiming, or saying this is how I do things, this is the best way of doing it, blah blah blah. Now, also with working better, if you were to think logically, if I was to clean this window, and I will say, well, if you think logically, if you can clean this window quicker with a high quality result, wouldn't that be a better way of working? Now, to most sane people, that will be, yes, of course it will be a better way of working, but there are some YouTube window cleaners that have to disagree. So obviously they think that working longer, harder, slower is always a better way of working, because that's exactly what they do day in and day out. And also I've been criticised with the way I work because I'm lazy. I don't do detailing. Zero detailing is either doesn't exist, number one, or it's a lazy way of working. Well, I suppose I've got to agree that if I'm not working longer, and I'm not working harder, I'm not working slower, and I'm getting high quality results by not stopping and getting another tool out to fix all of my mistakes, then if you want to look at it as being lazy, then I suppose it is lazy. But I could also fire back to that guy and say, well, if you bothered to improve your way of working, still working exactly the same way as you did 5 years ago, as if you did 10 years ago, and using the same standard tools and the standard methods of working, then I could easily say back, well, your way of working is lazy because you're still working longer, harder, slower, and getting less results. Maybe he's physically not working lazily, but his attitude, his ignorance, and his naivety makes him a lazy window cleaner in my eyes. So it's all a matter of opinion. But all I'm saying is, the best way that I think to clean a window is the most efficient and most effective way. And I'm not interested in being the fastest, I'm interested in being the most efficient and effective window cleaner. And that means you've got to use a certain way of working, not using the standard way of working, not using a standard technique, not using a standard method, and not using a standard tool. Because if everything's standard, then I'm going to be working longer, harder, slower, and getting less results. So what do I have that is always beneficial to me? I have a saturated solution, I have a great glide, I have no drips. And because this is such a saturated, thick solution, if this window was really dirty, it's sucking off the dirt quicker than it would if it was a sloppy solution. Now, if I've got a sloppy solution, that means I'm going to have more work, more mess to clean up, and my techniques and my working ability will mimic the solution, which is sloppy. So my techniques, my ability will be sloppy. Now, if you just use the window cleaning YouTubers analogy, examples, we all know who they are. How many of them use these tools? And how many of them will say, well, this tool isn't that great? The reason why it's not great is because their working setup is not great to begin with. So let's not focus on this tool as it's the most efficient and effective that you can use for window cleaning. It's only efficient and effective for someone who knows how to use it the best way. So for the guys who can't use it on YouTube, there's a reason why, and it all boils down to their method. Obviously their skill level is not fantastic. Obviously their way of working, their overall methods of working is not as tight, because this solution is very tight. It all comes down to their solution. So if they're using a squirt bottle, or if they're using diluted soap, and I don't use any professional soaps, if I was to use a professional soap directed as exactly what they tell you to do, my skill level will deteriorate, will decrease. I will then be working longer, harder, slower and getting less results. So I've got the privilege of paying extra money, sourcing it from a certain supplier, and then when I do use it as directed, as they say what you should be doing by diluting it in the bucket of water, I then cannot use this tool as good as I can use it with using a 79p expense of dish soap and work at a much higher quality rate, getting much more precision and accuracy. And there's no debate here when it comes to working precise and accurately. If you work precise and accurately in any work, in doing anything, obviously that is a better way of working than if you're working sloppily. You know, I like to say I work like a surgeon on the glass, and the other window cleaners on YouTube work like butchers. They use butcher tools, they use butcher techniques, they hack at the windows, whereas I just glide through the windows. And this is what many people will say to me and say, I don't want to work like these guys, I want to work like you. What is the magic ingredient? What is the magic? But there's no magic, it's just lots of experience, lots of knowledge built up over many years. And I didn't start with this tool. This tool came out of fruition from the way that I worked for many years prior to ever coming up with this tool with Mormon. So that's why you don't get these window cleaners, these so-called expert window cleaners, using the most precise, most accurate tool, because their solution is so loose, their technique and ability is really loose as well. Doesn't matter what they claim or what they say, they might think, well, they do think, I know. What I'm telling you is, you're asking me the questions because you know that I know the answers, and I'm going to explain it to you in this video. I don't think I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And my actions always speak louder than my words anyway. So, when I clean this window, I'm not going to do anything technical. I'm just going to use a technique that is just a standard fanning technique coming down the glass. So I can use any tool and do the same maneuver. The only thing is, with this tool, I get the zero detail. I get 100% of the glass done. Now, lots of people say, well, that's not the window. This whole thing's the window. You still got mess here. Well, I'm talking about cleaning glass, not talking about cleaning the actual window. This is the byproduct of cleaning the glass. It's going to happen either way, whatever method I use. I just get less mess using this method. So I get less mess, I get better control of the squeegee, I get better response, I get a quicker response, and I get a better result. What can you say is detrimental with the way that I work? Well, if you're in a right frame of mind, you'll say, well, that is the best way of working. That is the most efficient, most effective way of working, and it is, and it's very simple. Nothing complicated about it whatsoever.